What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Second Avenue Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathon and Elijah.
I'm your other host, Elijah Venencia. We are recording this a day late. This is a little bit awkward for us. I'm a little bit out my element recording on a Monday night instead of Sunday night. We've really found that's like our day. Like that really
Mm-hmm.
just that suits best, and I feel like I'm so comfortable with it now. Like it's just such a schedule at this point. So this is really throwing it off. But we had some family conflict yesterday, like conflicting events. So
No beef between us, though,
yeah,
for the
no
record,
beef
obviously.
between the families, but I had a
Uh, you,
Christmas. Jonathan's family wanted to go watch a movie, so
a Christmas classic, we had to go watch It's a Wonderful Life. That's a go-to for my family, so had to go watch that. It was like the 75th anniversary is what I've been hearing, and then they said it was 76, so I don't know why it was such a big deal, but good to see it again. Good movie. It's been a long time since I've seen it. This is one of the first times I've seen it all, and like I think I'm gonna actually like remember what happened like I used to see it, growing up and whatever. But yeah, good to see that. Good to get the episode
overrated.
out. Whatever. It
Yeah,
is like
no,
I
no, it's just the way movies age. Like it's not
no,
over.
100%.
Yeah,
100%. I'm like
but you,
notorious
you,
about not having seen movies, and like the IMDb has like a top 25 movies of all time. I think it's IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes or one of them, one of the big movie publications, and they have the 25 top rated movies of all time. And I think It's a Wonderful Life and like Forrest Gump or something were the only two I had seen like 6 years ago. I've seen a couple more since then, but at some point those were like two of the top 25 or top 50 that I had seen. So
I'm, I'm just saying.
tough.
You look me in the eyes and you tell me you'd rather watch It's a Wonderful Life over the Batman.
I
You
would not.
can't. Yeah, I mean
I
you're
cannot say that.
lying through your teeth if
Very
you
different
do.
though. Very different moods. Around Christmas time, I would say that to your face. I think.
Wasn't there some Christmas scenes in the Batman, or was that
I think that's a
Halloween?
different one. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't remember that
Okay.
in the
Yeah. I feel
Batman.
like we've gotten Christmas scenes in a Batman movie before, but yeah.
Probably. I don't remember this one though. I've only watched it the one time we saw it in theater, so I'm gonna need to rewatch it. But yeah, like you said, I mean, it's super weird to be recording on a Monday night instead of Sunday night. Sunday night was our groove at the beginning. Sometimes we record like Thursdays or even like a Wednesday.
It was
One,
rare we did Sunday.
yeah, we never did Sundays, but then we got in the groove of Sundays. Give us plenty of time to listen to music dropped on Friday, get prepared, and it kind of just worked. Get the edit out and get it out to you guys. But it's a day late, but it is probably the most anticipated episode of the year. So
For
I'm
us,
excited to
at
get
least,
into it.
yeah.
Yeah, for us at least. Like I've been thinking all year, every time I listen to an album, where's this going to be? And it's finally the day. It's been weighing on me. I'm still, rethinking some of my spots. They'll probably change in a month from now, but this is what we got today, and I stand by it. I think.
Yeah. Let's. I guess fantasy. My fantasy team lost. It was a 1 week playoff, and my big money league ended up losing out. I had a guy drop like 170 on me. That's tough. That's like the toughest ending ever for that team. And then I'm up 20 in the other league, so it's two
Should be
weeks though.
chilling.
So
2 weeks.
good
Okay.
start. Job's
Yeah.
not finished though.
My job's finished. My season's finished. I don't care anymore. Happy for you, but let's get on to what the people came for. Our top 10 rap albums of the year. Not necessarily rap albums of the year, just albums of the year, I guess. I got some that I wouldn't consider rap on here. Obviously, if you know my taste, you can probably guess what it is, but we'll get into it. All right, but yeah, let's get started. You kick us off here. What is
Uh,
your number 10 album of the year?
I gotta shout out my honorable
I
mentions
was gonna
here.
say, I was
Yeah.
gonna think about that, but let's save the honorable mentions until before the number one pick. So it's like,
Okay.
could
Oh,
those be
okay.
number
Yeah.
one?
Like
Yeah,
the Watch
okay.
Mojo videos.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't want to eliminate those right off the rip. So yeah, we can get into those in a minute, but let's kick off with number 10.
Kicking it off with my number 10. This is one I really didn't expect to make it at the time, but this has just quietly just had such a solid year in my rotation. And it is D-Day, a Gangsta Girls mixtape, DJ
Mm,
Drama, Dreamville, just so many bangers. I mean, Stick, we had that in both of our top 25s last week. And then, I mean, there's just tracks, Coming Down with Ari Lennox, Josie Flows with Boss and Earth Gang. I love Ghetto Gods freestyle. That could have made my top 25 as well.
that's a
Like
hard track.
just as a collective, that it's just a phenomenal collective there. So I had to give it the nod for sure.
I like that pick. I think it's a good project. It's cool. There's so many good tracks on it, but it's not on mine. I think, it kind of just when I go to an album, I want a little bit more of like a comprehensive experience. I think without the Gangster Girls, it almost like does not have that at all. But DJ Drum, being having his presence around all the tracks, that kind of ties it together. So I like that pick though. It's a good project for sure.
Thanks.
Okay, let's get into my number 10 here. This is a project from one of my favorite rappers of all time. I didn't know where this was going to end up. It could have been higher, it could have not been on here, but then I ultimately decided it had to be here. And that project is Sick by Earl Sweatshirt. It dropped very, very early in the year, but I think it's a great project to showcase Earl's rapping ability. You know, he's always going to come right with the lyricism, great production choice, but I think it also has some of his most like accessible tracks. When you look at like 2010 and Titanic, I think anybody can enjoy those, not just super big rap heads, but he's always going to come through for the people that, you know, like Earl for what he brings to the table, which is his rapping ability. And I think he showcases that so well on tracks like Fire in the Hole or Tabula Rasa with Arm& Hammer. Just a great project, great rapping from Earl.
Yeah, phenomenal project there. Obviously didn't make mine. Like you said, it dropped earlier in the year. I felt like it kind of fell out of rotation as the year went on. So I feel like, the early year projects are at a disadvantage. Like you gotta make a point there. So
Mm-hmm, for sure.
moving on to my number 9 album, I have Wasteland by Brent Faiyaz. Just this is just like everything I wanted in a Brent project. And I feel like it's disrespectful to have it at 9, but I don't know. It was tough. Like this 5 through 10 was just very tough to rank. But I mean, he came correct. Ghetto Gatsby. I think that was top 15 of my listen to tracks this year. So amongst other tracks, Love Gravity with Tyler the Creator. So I know that's your boy. I know you're gonna have him high. So
It's my boy, but I'll say it right now, it's not in my albums of the year list.
ooh, that's very
I
surprising.
I know it's Brent is probably like my favorite artist out right now. And this is the one that I had the toughest time wrestling with. It was basically between Brent and Earl at number 10 for my last spot. Two people I love, so it's tough. I think I just prefer Fuck the World from Brent. I like Wasteland, and I think my thing with it was I didn't love the skits. That took away from the album
Yeah.
experience a little bit for me. And then so many of the songs dropped so long ago, like Gravity, like Dead Man Walking, like Wasting Time with Drake. You know, these are tracks that I've just had so long with that, like, I don't know, like I just can't find myself going back to them in this like realm of the album. And there are definitely tracks I love on Wasteland, but just as a whole, there's just so many good albums that dropped this year and just couldn't make my list. And that's the one that I think I'm gonna regret moving forward. Like, and ask me in 48 hours, and it might be number 5. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just when I was making this list, like I had it at like number 5, and then I just kept thinking about the ones I was like, I'll take this above that. I'll take this above that, and then made its way off my list. So
Very,
very
very
tough for
surprising.
that project. I know, very
I would
surprising. I
have
knew that
I
was going
would
to be
have put
surprising.
a lot of money that you had it on your top 10 at least. So I would have put a lot of money on top 5. So
Yeah, I see that, but I don't know. Let's focus on what I do have here. Let's move on with my number 9. This is a project that I don't want to say I slept on at first. We haven't really talked about it too much on the pod, but I listened to it again yesterday because I was thinking about what albums have I not given the love that maybe deserve it. And this is one that replaced Brent. Great project though. It is Cheat Codes by Danger Mouse and Black Thought. Black Thought, one of the most underrated lyricists of all time. He just goes crazy on this project. Danger Mouse, goated producer. I mean, a track list that also has features from ASAP Rocky, Run the Jewels, Conway the Machine. I mean, it's just such a great project that just has such great lyricism with the interesting production. Every track's a little bit different. You get the great rapping, but the productions would be a little bit different, a little bit more interesting all around. Love it. And yeah, I think this is one people might not have checked out, but I would definitely recommend.
yeah, that's one I remember listening to. But I mean, honestly, I didn't add too many songs out of it, so it didn't stick. I mean, truly in the rotation that much. So good pick there,
Yeah,
though.
it's one that like hasn't been steady in the rotation. The only tracks I had like been steady listening to were the one with Rocky and the one with Doom.
Mhm.
And then I gave it that re-listen and I was like, oh yeah, this is the one.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be in rotation moving forward
Mhm.
a lot more. And it really impressed me so that it definitely deserved a spot here on my
Yeah.
list.
I definitely tried to go with like a mix of like the quality of the music and then like how much I listened to him as well. So
For
that
sure.
that had a big factor in it for me. So, but moving on to my what are we at number 8 here? This was surprising to make. Initially, it was an honorable mention, but I went through this like first 5-track run and I was like, okay, he did. This has to make it, and that is Dawn FM by The Weeknd. Obviously got the title track, into Gasoline, into How Do I Make You Love Me, into Take My Breath, into Sacrifice. I mean, that 5-track run right there is just, I
Mm.
was listening, I was like, okay, the levitating SpongeBob meme where that was
Oh
me
yeah,
there. And then obviously, the Weeknd's an artist that can do that to you with any of his projects, but it was just back to back to back there. So definitely deserves the nod. I don't think it could have made it much higher than 8, but I think 8's the perfect landing spot in my list. So
for sure. Uh, Great project. You'll see it eventually on my list. I'll say. I won't give away where, but we'll be talking about it in a minute. Great project. Love that pick. Let's move on to my number 8. Kind of, same lane a little bit, R&B lane. SOS by SZA. It's a new project. I wouldn't be mad if people had this as like their album of the year, a top 3 album of the year. I feel like I personally should have a little more time with it to grow attached to some of these songs and have them pass up some of these other projects. But it's a phenomenal project, well worth the wait from SZA. She's obviously going to do her thing in the R&B lane, but she's also really just trying out so many different styles in this project, from like kind of rock to kind of rap. Just doing her thing. Great project. I find a new track I love every time I go back through. Phenomenal project.
yeah, and I mean, we all know that's something I heavily advocate for, is mixing genres. I love that. Love when an artist does that. So phenomenal project. Didn't make my list, but I think with a little more time, we could have been seeing it. So moving on
See,
to my number.
there's another one that passed up Brent. Like 2 weeks ago, Brent was safe, and then we had a couple come. So yeah, sorry, Brent.
It's all right, Brandon. You're on my list. I'll let you still. Moving on to my number 7, I have Her Loss by Drake and 21 Savage. This was an interesting one because I did not know where to place it, but I just think how much I listened to the tracks, and it's everybody was saying, did Drake fall off? Did Drake fall off? I think he beat the claims here for sure. And then obviously 21 Savage did his thing as well. So I mean, it's everything I can ask for in a current day Drake project. So it's got to make my list at that point.
That's a good pick. Good project from Drake. Definitely his best in a minute. I enjoy some tracks on it. Not gonna make my list. I kind of just not been listening to it too much since it dropped, which hasn't been that long. So that's kind of saying something. But I need to give it another listen because I do enjoy it. I just gotta go back and show it some love. Moving on, my number 7 pick here. I have Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers by Kendrick Lamar. It's been a long time since we got a project from Kendrick. He did not disappoint. I feel like Kendrick can't not be on my top 10 list. You know what I mean? I don't know if he's on yours. He may or may not be, but Kendrick should be a lock for any top 10. He didn't disappoint. He comes through crazy tracks. Father Time, so good. Savior, so good. But one that's come back for me recently has been Count Me Out. I've been watching Last Chance U, the basketball one, season 2. They were playing that. I was like, K. Dot, King Kendrick, what a slapper. And I hadn't heard it in a minute. I feel like it's not one that I was going back to too much. But then I was like, all right, this is the one. So I've been listening to it. But there's so many other good songs on it. It's such a deep project. Not really any skips, just all around very, very good project.
Definitely. It's a solid project from Kendrick. We'll see if it lands on my list.
We'll see.
Moving on, though, to my number 6 project, we have Melt My Eyes, See Your Future by Denzel Curry. This was one that was like, you just knew. You knew this was a top 6 album right away. I wish it can make my top 5. This is the hardest cut out of my top 5. I felt like after that, my top 5 was so solid, but this is like a 5A, 5B situation. Like, I can't. This album gets the praise it deserves, I feel like, within the music community. So I don't even need to go too in depth. So
100%. Such a good project. It's on my list, so we'll be talking about it again. But love this project. A lot of songs been in rotation the whole year. All right, let's talk about my number 6. It's a project from an artist that has just blown up this year. There's some hits. Who? Jack Harlow.
Jack Harlow.
Not young Harleasy. Steve Lacy. Had to have Gemini Rights by Steve Lacy on here. I've been listening to Steve Lacy for a minute since the Steve Lacy's demo tape. That's been such a staple in my rotation for years. And so this project has been great. Love to see this come up from making songs on his iPhone to running the game, having some of the biggest songs of the year with Bad Habit, some of the other tracks on here. I mean, Bad Habit's a great song. I don't really get tired of it. I could listen to it forever. Such a good track. Even with how popular it is, I love it. But there's so many other good songs, whether it's Static, whether it's Helmet, whether it's Sunshine. Don't really get tired of this project. And I find myself listening to it so often.
Definitely. One I never got into, too much. Obviously, I listen to Bad Habit here and there just with how mega that song is. So, but moving into my number five, this was this is easily the most beautiful album of the year. Like I was just when I was listening to this, I was damn near tearing up. And I gotta go with "You Can't Kill Me" by 070 Shake.
I knew that's what it was going to
A
be with
phenomenal
with
body
that
of
lead
work.
up. I knew it had to
Yeah,
be.
yeah, phenomenal body of work here. I mean, just so many great tracks, and I mean, just she's just so amazing. Her voice just beautiful. Um, just the first three tracks there, I felt like that's a huge thing for me is the initial tracks. It's got to make a
Hmm.
statement. Web, Invited, History, just that three-track run I was fucking crying my eyes out in my bed.
Such a good project. I will say I listened to this album yesterday, thinking about if it should be on my list, where it should be on the list. Ultimately, I decided it was not going to make my list, but it's such a good track. I agree 100% that those first couple songs are just amazing. I feel like I kind of like get lost a little bit at the end, like I lose a little bit of interest. But the songs that I love on it, I love on it. I'm listening to a lot. Phenomenal project, though. Like you said, I would agree with it probably being one of the most beautiful albums of the year for sure.
Definitely. Shout out 070 Shake.
With my number five album of the year, I have Melt My Eyes, See Your Future, Denzel Curry. Had to have in the top five. Like you said, it was an album where you were listening to it for the first time. You were like, okay, this is one of the ones, like it's going to be talked about in December on people's lists. So many amazing tracks from Walkin' to X Wing to Sanjuro. I love so many songs on it. I feel like some of the songs in the track list I don't find myself going back to too much, but the ones that I go back to all the time. Such a good project. Great, growth from Denzel. I think it's his best project. Obviously, I love Taboo, but I think he took a step with this one and can't wait to see where he goes from here because he's one of the most promising rappers in the game right now.
Definitely. And like I feel like the closing point for this, we already talked about it a little bit or a couple albums ago for me, but there's nothing else Denzel Curry can do in rap, or not much else Denzel Curry can do in rap. So I'm very excited to see his R&B steps that we're gonna possibly see in 2023. So
I'm here for it.
moving on to my number four pick, we have A Few Good Things by Saba. Just this album I just associate the most with Second Avenue. Like there's just sitting in Chicago. We made the joke so many times about the 2012 Green Line lyric as we were taking the train throughout the city, throughout our city. So
Just how we get home.
yeah, no, for sure. Saba's one I need to see in concert. But just a phenomenal project there. I feel like we've talked about it so much. What else can we say?
We have. It's a great project. I feel like we really dropped the ball by not going to his concert in Chicago for John Walt Day last couple weeks
November.
ago.
Yeah.
He brought out a couple surprise guests. Would have been fire to see, but yeah, great project. Love some tracks on that one. But let's move on to my number four here. I have Ramona Park Broke My Heart by Vince Staples. This is a great project. I love Vince. I feel like, it's kind of like a sister to Summertime '06. It's a look back at his adolescence, what makes Vince Vince, and it's just more polished because, he's advanced in his craft. Shorter project. Some of my favorite tracks of the year on this one. Last week you mentioned that there's only two picks that you could take off this one, those being the Blues and When Sparks Fly, but there's so many other good ones for me. You got Paper Cuts, you got Mama's Boy. I love so many songs on this. I'm bumping these all the time, and Vince is just, I think he's one of the most underrated rappers out. I'll forever be on that hill. He doesn't get the respect he deserves. I've never heard Vince in like an all-time rapper debate, but I feel like he belongs. I feel like every time he just continues to one up himself. And he's got Acura commercials, he's got Sprite commercials. He's in the public eye. I feel like he's just not talked
Yeah.
about like he is, but he is, and I love to see that growth from Vince.
Definitely. I mean, he is a superstar in rap. And I mean, the music community's eyes, I feel like with all this extra stuff he has as well, he should be, one of these damn near A-list rappers. So moving on to my number three pick, we have Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. This is one that I do not think would have made it. I'll say 3 months ago, when did this release? It released in May, saw him in July, and after that, it was cool on it for a little bit, but then late October, early November, just songs like Count Me Out or Rich Spirit, Father Time, N95, Savior. This up top to bottom, there's just so many phenomenal tracks. It is just such a great collective. and with it being the double disc, they both fit really well, and they could almost go together. So
Great project. I already gave my thoughts, but phenomenal album. I love that pick. You seeing it live too, that's definitely got to give it a little boost. And
oh, for sure.
I wish I got the chance to see him live, and I definitely have to before it's all said and done. But yeah, phenomenal project from Kendrick. Moving on to my number three, sticking with an artist that I had the chance to see live and it kind of cemented it there for me. It's Almost Dry by Pusha T. King Push delivers. Obviously, he's been saying rap album of the year. It's up there. I wouldn't be mad if you had it higher. You got the shirt on. I know you do. So I'm excited to see where it is on your list. But phenomenal project from Push. I mean, he's always going to come right with the production, working with Kanye so closely, working with Pharrell so closely, having both of them have such a large presence on this project. Fantastic to see. One of the best rappers alive. After seeing him live, I can 100% say that he's the best rapper I've ever seen live. And that made me love this album so much more. And I already loved it a lot. So fantastic project. One that's steady been in the rotation all year and is going to be for years to come. Such a good project. When we're talking about 2022, I know this is one that we'll be looking back on as like one of the top.
Definitely. I'll say my thoughts. Moving on to my number 2 pick here. While you were saying, so it's Ramona Park broke my heart, but while you were saying, I felt like there's the two standouts in the Blues and When Sparks Fly. I feel like that's very true. So I'm gonna give a little NBA comparison here. You got When Sparks Fly and the Blues. That's Kyrie and LeBron. Then you got fucking J.R. Smith, Richard Jefferson, Kevin Love. You got all these just amazing.
I love J.R. Smith.
Yeah, no, like the phenomenal pieces. Just like they just fit it perfectly. It fits the vibe perfectly, and together it is a championship contender. So I mean, no diss to Amon Shumperts, Dellavedovas of the world. They're perfect players for that team.
You need those to get the championship.
You need the Magics, the East Point Prayers, the A for the homies. Like you need those to make this a number 2 album. So.
And it makes the LeBron and Kyrie tracks shine a little bit brighter. So
exactly.
Yeah, I'm with that. I like the comparison. That's solid for sure. Okay, let's move on to my number 2 though. It's an album that you already mentioned. It's Dawn FM by The Weeknd. Number 2, this is an album that on the first listen had to run it back. I love this project from The Weeknd. He's finding his lane within pop while still satisfying the fans that have been there since the beginning. I've been a fan of The Weeknd for so many years, and I feel like he kind of lost me for a couple of years in the Beauty Behind the Madness, Summer Starboy era. But then with like After Hours, he got me back, and I was as big of a fan as ever. And then on this project, I love it just as much. He's, redefining pop with that 80s comeback style. And I can't wait to see what the third part of this trilogy is going to be. But this project is so good. Like you said, that initial run, you get some of the later tracks, like Is There Someone Else or Less Than Zero, one of my favorite tracks of the year. And I mean, that's like what solidifies it for me as a top 2 album of the year. It's got the hits. Everybody loves it, myself included. Had to be somewhere on my list. Didn't know how high it was going to be forever. I mean, I really didn't decide until like a couple of days ago where it was going to be. And then I kind of just kept thinking, this is one that I stand by the quality of it, but it's also so heavy in my rotation that I listen to it so often that number 2 felt right.
Definitely. That was like one that for me personally, it could have been anywhere from 3 to 7. Like it could have fit within that range perfectly. Ultimately landed at 8 there. So I felt like it was just how I was feeling that day. So all right, moving on to my honorable mentions. We got the Watch Mojo vibe here. Honorable mentions right before the number 1. Got to go West Side Boogie. Need More Black Superheroes. Nigo, I know Nigo. JID. Gonna have to set some fans there. And then Joey Badass as well. That was another deserving one. So moving on to my number 1 pick. Got the rap album of the year. I had to change shirts.
We know what time it is.
Yeah, rap album of the year. This ain't rap album of the year. This is album of the year. But just beautiful project. Like, how do you follow up Daytona with arguably a better project? Just just seeing him in concert, like you had mentioned earlier. And then, I mean, this just collectively, like there are no misses on it at all. I feel like there's no misses on any of these, but this just takes it to another level. Like I feel like there's just so many one-liners or tracks and just,
Hmm.
just day by day. Like I just heard Just So You Remember today, this morning before work, and it was just,
Mm.
oh, just that sample, just phenomenal shit by Push there. And it's been advertised as a rap album of the year. I think we need to just start calling it the album of the year. So that's why it's won.
I love that for you. I had a feeling this could be it. I respect it. I agree with the statement about, there's no misses. I think there's only sleepers on this project. There are tracks that, people might be sleeping on. I mean, like you said, just remember, that's one of the best tracks of the year. I mean, the only song that I would say maybe is like a miss is Open Air, but it's still a hit. That's like the one that I think is like the bottom track if I had to say. But other than that, I mean, it's such a good project. You got the Kanye side, you got the Pharrell side. Both are just as good as the other. So many good tracks. Let the Smoker Shine, the Coops, Diet Coke, Scrape It Off. Hear Me Clearly. Hear Me Clearly goes so
Oh my
crazy. I listened to it
god,
again the other
left
day.
my
Oh,
elbow in the pot.
I love Vince Carter.
Like just so many one-liners.
Cocaine's Dr. Seuss.
Yeah,
Like
open air. Tony's in the circle. We Sosa's here. I mean, just phenomenal. Like I said, I don't know how you follow up with Daytona with arguably a better project, but I think he did it in my eyes. So
very tough to do, but Push is one of the most skilled rappers out there. So if anybody can do it, it's him. All right. Let's move into my honorable mentions here. Obviously, the biggest honorable mention to Wasteland by Brent Faiyaz. Arguably my favorite artist out right now. Just couldn't quite make it. Love the project. Just love a couple others more. Other than that, we got Love for Rap by Smino. We got Drill Music in Zion, Lupe Fiasco. We got Roughs by Kenny Mason. Hitler Wears Our Maze 10 by Westside Gun. Kiss the Ring by Rome Streets. And then, you talked about it, but I got to give it a special shout as well. You Can't Kill Me by 070 Shake. Let's move on to my number one, though. It's The Forever Story by JID. I was
yeah,
offended last week when you said it wasn't going to make your top 10 because at that point I knew it was my number one, but I didn't want to give that away. This project is crazy. JID delivers. I feel like he showed so much potential and delivered so well on the Never story. And then DiCaprio 2 was like cool. It was, whatever. There was good tracks on it, but it was not anywhere near the Never story for me. So I wondered what this project was to be like. And it took everything we saw on the Never story up 5 notches. Such a great track list with no skips. He's got the conscious storytelling, obviously, with his just crazy lyricism, flow switches, all of that. But he's still going to deliver with some hits like Surround Sound. I mean, it's got standout tracks like Crack Sandwich, Cody Blue 31, Money. Just such a great project all around. I mean, JID, I think, you kind of said, what does Denzel have to prove with rap? I think from a technical standpoint, from a catalog standpoint, JID is getting to that discussion as well. He's delivered 2 amazing projects, and then with DiCaprio, 2 bunch of amazing songs, bunch of great features as well on other projects. JID's just really him, and he showed that so well this year that had to be number one.
that's another guy. I feel like just like Vince Staples could potentially be, one of these A-list, rappers. Has the potential and everything. And I listened to the project again. It did almost crack my top 10. But I'm standing by my pick. I couldn't, go on that little rant last weekend and then not have it or put it in at that point. So I think this is one that's going to grow on me with time. It just hasn't hit that, that where it just hits you, that one time. So still awaiting that. But, I can't deny that it's a phenomenal project and that he is probably the most technical rapper in the game.
Such an impressive rapper. Like you said, the A-list level, he'll get there one day. I feel like, it took an Imagine Dragons feature for him to have a song crack, 500 million streams, but I feel like he's going to have one of his songs that goes crazy
Solely his, yeah.
in the very, very near future. I just looked it up, and Enemy with Imagine Dragons is at 992 million streams. So he's almost a song
Coming
with a
up
billion.
on a Billy, yeah.
So shout out to JID, my rap album of the year, and probably a Billy before the end of January.
Definitely. This was a lot of fun. We've been waiting all year for this. I've had so much fun doing this, listening to all these projects week by week and kind of dissecting, I have a list of potential ones that we're going to make it. Some, didn't end up cracking it. But I mean, this is just a lot of fun this year. Probably my favorite part of every week is just seeing what album's dropping and listening to it. So
100%. I mean, this has been the most stressful part of my past week, deciding what the finalized version of this list was going to be. Having my guy Brent removed hurt me, physically pained me emotionally. And I'm going to regret that, I think, but I had to go with what felt right today. And this is what felt right. I got to go back to Brent sometime, but
hey,
tough.
there's a lot of tough choices. That's what it's like. Albums, it's different. So we did have weekly news, but I feel like this is the storybook ending right here. Almost our end of the year. So we'll get into what released and some news from this past week while you guys are listening to this. But thank you guys so much for all the support. And Johnny, this is a great time with you, man.
Love talking music with you. As always, that's the reason this podcast started, just so we could chop it up, talk music. And I feel like there's no better discussion than those end of the year lists. So great to get into that. We'll be back next week. It'll be our first episode recording together in person. Do some rap album of the year awards, MVP, rookie of the year, most improved, all that kind of stuff. But as always, stay tuned to our social media at Second Avenue Pod on Instagram. We might put up some polls this week so you guys can vote on the awards. We'll put the playlists up for some of our songs and albums of the year, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's been real.
We're going to have a big week to finish out the year, guys. So just stay tuned for next week.
We are going to go live on AMP Radio sometime the week after Christmas. So stay tuned next week and we'll come with an official date on that. But yeah, excited to get into that. We'll see you guys next week for another banger rap awards for the year. It's going to be fire.
All right, we'll see you guys.
See you guys. Peace.